The reading this morning is a reading that I'm sure many are quite familiar with. It's this encounter that Jesus has with the woman at the well. The text in the first opening verses of chapter 4 gives us a little bit of a background. He doesn't just arrive in Sychar, in Samaria, talking to a woman at the well. It's a bit more involved than that. Now, when Jesus learned that the Pharisees had heard that Jesus is making and baptizing more disciples, although it was not Jesus himself, but his disciples who baptized, he left Judea and started back to Galilee. But he had to go through Samaria. So he came to a Samaritan city called Sychar, near the plot of the ground that Jacob had given to him and given to his son, Joseph. Jacob's well was there, and Jesus, tired out by his journey, was sitting by the well. It was about noon. There is a fraught history, as some of you will be aware, between Jews and Samaritans. They were a pretty fiercely and also clearly divided people. Though they had a common ancestry in the distant past, from about the 6th century BCE, they were clearly not on the same track. And their understanding of their spiritual life, their understanding of the high and holy places where God had moved was keeping them apart, and they clearly did not associate with one another. So in the text that was read, we heard just that moment that Jews don't have dealings with Samaritans. That should all be in caps. It was really a way of saying these two people do not associate. And the text, in a very understated way, simply says Jesus had to go through Samaria. Had to in the sense that it was the shortest way from where he was going. But it was also had to in the sense that as a Jew, to walk through Samaria may be efficient, but it was problematic. Jesus, along the way, it's problematic because of this division, and it's problematic because of the kind of signifying that it was about this disassociation between these two people with a common ancestry. This is important to know because when we come to the verses that were just read and the verses that follow, the whole text in a way is really about one thing, which is communion. Communion. The whole text is really about communion, broken communion and the restoration of communion. Broken communion is part of what is hinted at by the way that the Pharisees are already extremely anxious about the ministry of Jesus, and Jesus, potentially already beginning to be brought to their attention, decided he was going to leave where he was and make his way to Galilee. And he had to go through Samaria, footnote, a place where a faithful, ritually pure Jew would not go, or tried in every possible way to avoid. And if you did pass through Samaria, you did not commune with the Samaritans. This is all part of the pretext for the significance of the moment where Jesus encounters the woman at the well. He's sitting there, tired, the text says, part of his own humanity, simply needing a glass or drink of water, asks the woman for a glass, for a sip, a cup. And in that context, this communion, unexpected communion occurs. Right from the start, the woman, not responding to the request for water, simply asks this awkward, broken communion question: why would you have any dealings with me? Jews don't ask Samaritans. And not only did they not ask Samaritans, a man would not talk to a woman in public, and a man who was a Jew would not talk to a Samaritan woman in that context. A Samaritan woman who the text says came to the well at noon, which is not when anyone else comes to the well in the heat of the day. It was morning or late afternoon. If you came in the middle of the day, it was really as much as anything a signal of not wanting to be seen, not wanting to be engaged, not wanting there to be any kind of communion. But in this case, Jesus simply asks out of his own need for a connection, could you give me some water? The woman is caught off guard by this, and Jesus is arrested as well. How is it that you, a Jew, ask a drink of me, a woman of Samaria? Jesus answered her, if you knew the gift of God and who it is that is saying to you, give me a drink, you would have asked him, and he would have given you living water. The woman said to Jesus, "Sir, you have no bucket, and the well is deep. Where do you get that living water? Are you greater than our ancestor Jacob, who gave us the well, and with his sons and his flocks drank from it?" See, there's this interesting question of history and background that is being sorted out between Jesus and this woman. There's a talk, of course, about the water, the need for a bucket. We live in a world where buckets are part of our need. We need a bucket to get to the water in the well. But now there's this other theme that Jesus introduced about living water, with the confusion that this woman, not really understanding what that could possibly refer to, not really understanding what it could mean between them, and who it is and why it is and where it is that this whole process is unfolding. And in the context of that, they are drawn now into a much deeper conversation. It began as a conversation, unexpected communion between a Jewish man and a Samaritan woman at the well at noon to avoid the people that she didn't otherwise want to encounter. And in the context of that, the conversation moves about buckets and the need for this physical water, but also this need for living water. What's happening here in the subtext of John is all of these signs of lines being crossed, of mysteries being referred to, of things clear and unclear being spoken. Jesus was never all that much of an advocate of too much clarity. I just think it's worth noting that he is not, a planner at Microsoft who seeks clarity at all costs. Just to be clear, Jesus says, he just doesn't use that kind of language. He's quite comfortable introducing mystery that is there unrecognized because it is not communed with or understood or entered into. Not about the debate between Jesus and the woman at the well about why he should or shouldn't be talking to her and what the water is about, and now what this living water is about. There is mystery unfolding, and Jesus being very comfortable both with the raw reality of a world of buckets and with the reality of a world that is beyond the world of buckets, of a living water that is deeper and more satisfying and significant than we might ever even imagine. Jesus says, "Everyone who drinks of this water will be thirsty again. But those who drink of the water that I will give them," now he personalizes it. This water, the he that he's referring to, is now him. He's stepping into the narrative and into the reference that he'd given. "The water that I will give them will become in them a spring of water, gushing up to eternal life." And the woman said to him, "Sir, give me this water so that I may never be thirsty or have to keep coming here to draw water." The really important thing about this moment in the text is this sense that Jesus is trying to intensify her thirst, not to slake it. He's asking her for water to satisfy his physical thirst, while he's increasing her thirst for what it is that she's really after. You come here for what a bucket can deliver, but I'm the source of what could give you something much more significant than the bucket that you're going to pull up from the well. It comes from the well of eternal life. It comes from the reality of who Jesus is, of the kingdom that Jesus is declaring and beginning to introduce in vivid ways to the people that are around him. And in the context of that, Jesus is increasing. Her curiosity is raised. What do you mean? What could that possibly be? I know that I hunger for that kind of water. She might have been thinking very pragmatically. I just would like to not come to this well anymore. And if whatever it is that you're talking about is real and is something that could actually satisfy that, then I would be happy not to be here.